with the 31st anniversary of the introduction of the Intercontinental Championship coming up, we talked about who the best IC champ is of all time. Well, let's make things a little bit interesting now. Who is the best Intercontinental Champion of all time to never win the World Championship? Now, just so I can set some ground rules, I mean, no World Champion in WWF, WWE, WCW, NWA, AWA, IWGP, Ring of Honor. So those are the big companies that we've had in the last 30 years. So no World Championships in any of those companies. So with that said, who is the best Intercontinental Champion to never win any of those world titles? Adam?
William Regal. William Regal is it. And for the same reasons why I mentioned and picked Chris Jericho in terms of his character work and everything like that. I mean, his stuff in WCW as Lord Steven Regal, you know, as a part of the Blue Bloods, and you know his TV title runs with Austin, you know, the matches in between them. He was just great. He was great, and then he comes over to the WWF, still awesome. Becomes William Regal in homage to his own grandfather, who turned him on to wrestling, and you know was the commissioner and you know leader of the Un-Americans with Lance Storm and Christian. There was just so much meat in William Regal, and I mean there was a point when I think Twitter first started where you know he was kind of in the twilight of his career, and he was just like they were going to do shows in the UK, and he was like, hey, the UK has never at that point had a British world champion or, you know, as recognized by the WWE. And he was just like, he was petitioning it. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen. But that is a good thing because he makes my list for one of the greatest Intercontinental Champions to never win a world title anywhere.
And that's a great pick. And it's definitely hard to argue William Regal, who, to be, in my mind, probably one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated wrestler in like the last 25, 30 years. You can make that argument. But my pick in this realm is going to someone who everyone felt should have been a champion at some point, if not multiple points, once in his career, and that would be the King of Hearts, Owen Hart. Ooh. His brother Brett said he was the better wrestler. Everyone, you know, you go like to Jim Ross or any of the experts, they all said, no, Owen was like the best wrestler. And you throw in the fact that he had the feuds set. He had his one big title feud with Brett. They could have continued that down the road and have Brett and Owen continue feud for the title. He could have had a world title feud with Steve Austin because the storyline was there. And then if they didn't do the crazy blue blazer gimmick with the transition of some of the smaller wrestlers that were coming in at that point, your Guerrero, your Benoit, etc., Owen Hart would have been in the main event picture at that point again. So the fact that he's got the Slammies, but he doesn't have the Hall of Fame, which we know is a whole different story altogether. But the fact that he was never the heavyweight champion, but anywhere. Obviously, he's mostly known in WWE, of course. But the fact that he never held it anywhere is a travesty. Easily the best to not hold that title.
Can't argue. I mean, I like both of these two picks that we just did. I think we've outdone ourselves. I don't think there's any list.
Yeah.
Oh, we're totally Barry Horitzing it. Let's Barry Horowitz the heck out of this because yes, I think William Regal and Owen Hart, the late great Owen Hart, are two of the best to ever do it. You know, step inside the square circle, so to speak. Yeah, dude, that's a really good pick. I love that. I love it so much.
I gotta ask, just because obviously William Regal and Owen Hart are two great choices, but one glaring omission, and I gotta throw it out there because a lot of people think of him not just as the greatest IC champ to never win a world title, but they think of him as the greatest IC champ, period. And that is the guy who held the longest, the IC belt the longest, the Honky Tonk Man. what is it about his reign that you think maybe doesn't get the love from you guys? Because I know he gets a lot from other people. I know he gets a lot from other fans. Why not put in Honky Tonk Man in this conversation of greatest IC champ to never win a world title?
I just don't think – I think the Honky Tonk Man in that mid-card as the IC champ, feuding for the IC champ, was picture perfect for him. And I just don't really think – even in that, that time in the 80s where crazy gimmicks run amok amongst everything, I still just find it hard to believe that you would end up trying to go with – I'm not trying to sound rude because I love the Honky Tonk Man, but to have a guy who was pretty much an Elvis impersonator be the guy holding the championship, being the flag bearer of your company, I just don't think that would have been the smartest look. And I think that's part of the reason why he never really had that shot. Intercontinental Champion, great, one of the greatest of all time, still longest reign of all time. Who knows if that record's ever going to be broken? But for a heavyweight champion, I never really thought of him.
No, I agree with you 100%, Josh. And this is not to discredit, the efforts of one Wayne Ferris, the Honky Tonk Man. It was an incredible performer. Ended up, after his WWF stint, going over to WCW and winning their TV title, which again was held by William Regal and brought to Prestige. But the reason why he could have faced Hogan, right? Because they were two kind of hokey characters. But when you think about it in terms of historical kind of timestamps, right? They're 3 years removed. 3 years removed from the Rock and Wrestling connection, right? With Wendy Richter and Cyndi Lauper and what have you, right? So 3 years removed to going into 88, and you've got an Elvis impersonator. Elvis had been dead for close to 20 years at that point. And not to say that he didn't have a feverish fan base or whatever, but just to see that in wrestling, and again, like Josh said, to have that as your standard bearer, your work rate, that wasn't a work rate kind of title to have, but I just could not see him in even a title contendership match that made any difference. Like if I saw Honky and Hogan, I knew Honky was going to lose.
That's a pretty good point. I mean, again, that's what we're here for. I can probably speak for our other wrestling chatter analyst, Jack Farmer, and probably mentioning Lance Storm, and even Flowboy Boyce probably thinks that the best IC champ to never win a world title is D'Lo Brown. I know they're both big fan of those guys. So, again, if you guys want to think I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
Both should be on that list, too. They're both great.
Although a guy that probably doesn't get the love, maybe, like, as I feel like even though he was the NWA champion, on the other side, even WCW World Champion, but maybe one of the best guys that ever won the WWF title. Not that he was going to, but I think he was a perfect mid-carder, is like a Jeff Jarrett. Just to kind of
see if you're talking about specifically just the WWF.
Then now that's a whole other.
Then I got to throw Rick Rude in this too.
Yeah, 100%.
Obviously he's not in the argument because he won the title elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're just talking WWF, then Rick Rude is definitely one of the choices.
Yeah,
I mean, there's go ahead.
No, I agree, and again, I love the AWA, right? So Vern Gagne, I still think one of the things that are missing in any iteration of wrestling today is somebody doing a Vern Gagne drop kick where he spins out and everything. It's just a thing of beauty. So with Rick Rude's inclusion in this list, and yes, he did win the WCW at the time. It was the NWA International title, right? The former NWA 10 pounds of gold, not 10 pounds of gold, but the big gold belt, right? He just kind of, he's at Robbinsdale, Minnesota, same high school that Vern Gagne went to, Greg Gagne went to, Perfect went to. It just, his inclusion on this list, along with like Mr. Perfect and what have you, it's just, to me, it's just like the AWA just shines so bright.
It's something always fun to talk about, but I want to ask you guys one last question before we wrap up. I think I know the answer to this question as well. What is the best Intercontinental title belt. I know we've seen a current incarnation of it that got introduced a few months ago. Shinsuke being the first person to hold it. We've seen since then. I actually love that belt, but we've seen since then Braun, Sami Zayn, currently AJ Styles. But what do you think is the best looking belt of the history of the Intercontinental Championship?
I loved, and correct me if I'm wrong, George, because you know this better than me. I think it was Cody that brought out the classic IC title look with the white strap.
Yeah.
To me, that one is the best one of all time.
No, I just like that. I don't care what iteration that is. That is the design. That is the design to me that is synonymous with the Intercontinental title. That is something that was basically fought for, in the much, publicized and babble-hooed, Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat match, right? But I love the caveat that it has the WWF, and then even in that WWF logo, there's kind of a red colored inlay. It's just kind of cool, right? And then you go into, SummerSlam in the UK, right, at Wembley Stadium, and, it's basically headlining the card, and you've got Bret Hart versus British Bulldog. And to me, to have, and titles are important, right? To have people that are fighting for something that somebody would want to fight for, right? I hate crappy title designs. So that one right there, it's the equal part. It's a great design for what it is. And then the matches that happen in contention of such, it just blows it all away for me.
I think we can all agree, and tell me I'm wrong, that the most hideous looking Intercontinental belt was that Attitude Era, that oval, ugly, hideous purple strap, the one that got introduced the day after WrestleMania 14 with The Rock having it on his shoulder. Wait, did you actually like it, Josh?
I liked it better than the current one. I hate the current one. The current one to me doesn't look like the Intercontinental. It has to have. I mean, even though that one was like an oval, so it didn't look full like it. At least it still had the damn blue globe to an extent. This one looks like it was straight out of some knockoff MMA company that like they took a title from, and not that one, Adam. That one looks better, but but it was just I have not liked the look of it, and I feel like even like if we're looking at today with AJ Styles being, the current holder of it, I feel like as good as AJ Styles is doing with the title, it would be doing so much better if it looked the part, but it doesn't.
I know Adam's a historian. I know that the Intercontinental Championship was first introduced when you had the WWF North American Championship alongside the South American Championship, hence the Intercontinental Championship. I know Ted DiBiase was the last North American champion.
Yes, he was. And, talk about one of the greats to never have a, sanctioned WWF belt. That's one of the greatest. But in terms of that title design, it looks like, well, Josh, you said it looked like a crappy MMA belt. I will kind of, I don't agree. I don't agree with you there. What I will say is it looked like steampunk, like a steampunk festival around the waist of Shinsuke Nakamura, and that's barfed in the bag that Sami Zayn entrusted Nakamura with, and that's how you got the current incarnation of the Intercontinental title. So there's that.
If people want to send their hate tweets over to you, Josh, because you don't like the new Intercontinental Championship, where can people find you?
I have not heard a single tweet saying they like it. So if anyone actually likes it, let me know. I'm at Tariff on Twitter and Instagram, youtube.com/Josh Tariff for all different other types of videos. And just comment down below also. Let us know.
Give us a thumbs up, too. What about you, Adam?
According to Woods everywhere. And yes, follow and subscribe to the Wrestling Chatter. You definitely want to hit that bell button for the notification so you'll know every time a video descends. It drops, as the kids say nowadays, for the Wrestling Chatter.
Hey, it's Christy Olson. If you like this video as much as I did, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends so they can join in the wrestling chatter too. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow the show on Twitter at TW Chatter. See you next time.